Hey, welcome to another installment of Gracefully Embracing Chaos, brought to you by McKinsey Corporation. I'm Brent, here with Jenny and Katie, co-presidents and owners of McKinsey Corporation. Today, we want to talk a little bit about the impact that this past year has had. You can't overstate the impact of all the changes, obstacles, but also opportunities that have popped up along the way. As brands start to look forward to 2021, they have to take a step back and consider the fact that everything they knew about their customers from last year, even earlier this year, even a couple months ago, has changed. Everything about their market has changed and will continue to change. So it's going to be important for these brands to continue gathering data, gathering insights and feedback from their customers. So Jenny, looking forward, what are some of the misconceptions about market research or consumer insights that you'd hope to explain away or correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think you made a really good point of we are living in an unprecedented time right now, right? Of what's going on and the mass evolution of the changes that have happened in customer behavior and buying power and whatnot. I think one of the big misconceptions about research and what I heard at the beginning, even of COVID starting, is we're just going to wait till things go back to normal, and then we'll start doing some research, or then we'll start reaching out to our customers, because one, they were talking a lot about, or people that we were connecting with, is this isn't normal, so we don't want to wait until things go back to normal, and then we'll find out what people want. That one is a misconception. We want to be talking with our consumers and customers throughout this entire period of what are they feeling, what's going on. So just because you might not be able to benchmark this exact time again later does not mean that you should not be leaning in now and listening, because to your point, that's where opportunities are going to come up. I think another big misconception is that people don't want to be, there's so many surveys out there right now, and they're boring surveys or whatnot, is that maybe people don't want to be taking or participating. I think that is further from the truth right now. People want, and consumers, human beings in general, want their voices to be heard. I think that is coming through loud and clear on a lot of different issues that's happening. And if brands, I think successful brands will be the ones that open up the door and the opportunity to truly connect with their consumers and their constituents, to hear what they want and what they need and what's going on in their lives. And people want their voices to be heard in an authentic way. So I think two things is, one, that a misconception is that you shouldn't be doing research right now or customer engagement. And two, that people don't want to. That could not be further from the truth. So wholeheartedly disagree.
Yeah. Anything to add, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now too, that concept of leaning in and asking the feedback and acknowledging that this is a different time for your consumers and just people in general. But I think that then it's also looking at it not only to say, how can you continue serving them and making sure that you're meeting their needs during this time, but this is an amazing time for innovation and to be able to like really think about how people's needs and wants and desires have changed. And so for you as a brand to be able not only to say, how can we serve you best during this time, but start thinking about how like your product or your service and how that can evolve and be innovated during this time as well, based on feedback and the changing needs of consumers.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, and we've talked about this before internally, is it's not that people don't want to take surveys, it's they don't want to take boring surveys. They don't want to take meaningless or irrelevant surveys. And so that's where then it's on us and on the brands to make sure that we understand what people care about, what's important to them. And when we start digging into those areas and those topics, that's when we start to see the flood of feedback and engagement come in. I think another thing that's interesting is I feel like there's an opportunity for more brands to leverage pulse surveys and panels, to where rather than delivering one 30-question survey twice per year, is continually pepper out 5 or 8 question surveys throughout the year, keeping people engaged. And in doing that, you can address those micro challenges or micro opportunities that pop up without having to wait until that 6-month mark or year mark when that opportunity could have passed already.
Right.
Yeah, I think
you want to be, sorry, Kate.
Go ahead.
Well, and I think those pulse surveys of touching or connecting with customers at multiple times throughout their life cycle, and ensuring that we're connecting with customers at the right time, right? So right after a purchase or after a service or at the 3-month mark of owning. So we're not waiting till that 6 month or that year, and then we're getting everybody at one time when they're in a different phase of the life cycle of the product. So making sure that they're timed according to what's going on with the life cycle that they've dealt with. I think it's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on, is making sure, really another maybe misconception too, is that the research department is separate entity or separate department than like your marketing department. And actually, if you start integrating them together and find those spots within within the customer life cycle, and then find these different touch points where then the departments can all be working together, and you can integrate, these pulse surveys into your different touch points that you're already going to be sending out anyway. And so how do you, then again, it feels more authentic is one. And then also around with consumers wanting to give their feedback in these pulse things. Consumers also then want to know what you're doing with that information. And so again, using that as an opportunity for a feedback loop where you can say, based on this survey, these are the changes we're making. Based on the survey, this is what we've done. And just continually like showing the appreciation for people giving their time and their ideas and insights. It is another one that, it's showing that like you want to actually create a two-way relationship with them.
Yeah. When we have clients come to us and we start discussions with brands, a lot of times there's a very focused yet at the same time general and vague idea of what they want to accomplish, of why they want to collect data and what they want to ask from their customers or prospects. And when we start digging in, we start to realize that it fragments out, and really they're talking about 3 or 4 different topics or 3 or 4 different objectives. As we continue then to kind of make sure that they're not spinning their wheels and we're not spinning our wheels, as we take those steps back to say, okay, what are we really hoping to accomplish? A lot of times things come back to very basic concepts like brand perception, brand awareness, some of these things that are almost so obvious and so basic that they get overlooked. Yep. Why do you think, Katie, why do you think it's so easy for people to overlook those high level survey topics or insights topics, even though they're super important?
No, I think it's because, sometimes people are trying to figure out, a certain type of issue. What product does somebody want to do, or how do we evolve these products? And they're down there. But if they haven't stopped to think about how do we want to be known as a brand? And then what do people think of us? Again, doing a gap analysis on that, I think it's the inclination to go to fix the product or the service or the something versus saying, hey, wait, we got to make sure also our messaging is resonating the way that we want it to be, and really trying to get, as kind of you talked about, back to like the brilliant basics of really being able to say, how do we, make sure that we understand the baseline of what people think about us? Do they know about us? Those types of things. And understanding that is going to make your marketing team more effective. You're going to have clarity around, where your gap is and how you need to tweak some of those messaging or content that you're creating, or your sales team, that you're going to know when you're going out there that the words that you're saying as a part of your sales pitch are really resonating in the way that you want it to do. So again, I think that sometimes it is our inclination to kind of overcomplicate things, and we forget to actually focus on some of the ones that are probably can be sometimes the most impactful, as well, as if we actually take it back to those basic ideas, because if not, then all your other initiatives may not be as effective anyway if you don't understand what the baseline is around perception and awareness.
Yeah, I think it's a huge thing. I mean, we always try and then come all the way back up to the beginning of who is the person that we're selling, what's the problem that we're solving, what's the promise that we have, all of that. Like once we've clearly defined a lot of those things, then some of these other pieces start falling into place a lot easier. I think, people jump right to the end because of, trying to maybe find the silver bullet or what is the answer like down here, but we need to make sure that those, your overall brand health, who are we talking to, what's going on in their lives, what keeps them up at night, what problems are they trying to solve. Those are things that we need to know high level. And once those are in place, then we can start asking the right questions underneath. We work with sales and marketing teams mostly, and there is immediate, we need to get something done now. We need to get new sales now, or we got to figure these things out. And so it is a bit of, reactionary sometimes, where this, ideally, we're looking at trying to be, set some ground rules here, step back a little bit so it doesn't have to be trying to figure it out every single time. of what's going on, kind of like Kate said, create more clarity and confidence around what we're doing and who we're talking to, so things will fall into place easier.
Yeah, a lot of times I think about it like you've got people who want to do the fun, exciting things. If you're like, you've got a house, you want to decorate your house, you want to put the furniture, you have an idea of what you want the roof to look like. But then you step back and say, have you built the walls yet? Do you know the layout? Because without any of that, you could be picking all the couches and decorations, but at the end of the day, it's not going to fit in because you didn't do that groundwork and build that foundation up front. So all of that work that you just did ends up becoming irrelevant because you didn't set yourself up for success doing the quote unquote boring or obvious things to set that baseline.
I mean, then you might, because then whose house are you building it for? And you will land on some people, but will it be as effective as it should be, right? I mean, so it could work. It just is going to be, I think these days and going into 2021, and even it's been happening this year, is we need to maximize all the marketing dollars that we're spending right now. I mean, resources are limited and time is limited, and we need to be making faster decisions. And so how can we be as impactful as possible? So not to say that it couldn't work on this shotgun kind of approach, but we just want to make sure of how are we having the most impact by what we're doing, for sure.
So we hit on two key topics that I wanted to explore a little bit further is, Katie, you had mentioned that concept of brilliant basics. And this is something that we've started a campaign on. We're putting out content because it's so valuable and so important. And then Jenny, you had mentioned there are those few key points that all brands should know. Combining those two, you've got the brilliant basics, you've got these concepts, especially looking forward to 2021. Jenny, if you're talking to a brand who says, I have no idea what to do, but I know I need to find out some insights or I need something, where would you suggest they start?
Gosh, I mean, it really depends. I mean, the first thing, a lot of people come to us and they say, hey, let's just do a survey. Let's go out and survey some people. And so we really want to like back up. Typically, there's been a lot of information and a lot of work that's already been done, some groundwork out there. So we back all the way up and say, let's take a look at the information, the data, the insights that you currently have. What is it? Well, I mean, one, what are we trying to accomplish here? So I'd come back to say, what's the overall business objective? Therefore, what is the sales and marketing goals and objective that we're trying to accomplish? What do we know about our customers? So let's fill in the gaps with information that we already know first and foremost. I was just chatting with somebody the other day and she was asking, hey, let's do more focus groups. Let's do more surveys. And I said, I think you're sitting on a lot of information that you're not leveraging yet. So once we kind of lay all that out, then we can figure out where the holes are and where we want to be able to go and get additional information and working backwards. So data analysis and really uncovering, right, this inventory of what's happening and what you currently have. Typically, then we also will do some sort of market mapping process that we have. I mean, I don't want to go into too much details, but really let's take a look at what's going on outside of just our customer, I mean, our company, out of our industry, what's happening in the world. To your point, this has given all of us a tremendous opportunity in 2020 and now going into 2021 to figure out what's different in the world, right? I mean, we don't operate in a vacuum. Obviously, we've got lots of things happening in our world, popping in and out. So backing up, market mapping to see our place in the world, and then validate at scale. So I think that was a long answer, but we've got a roadmap to be able to say, like, how do we do this in the most methodical way possible to make sure that we're maximizing the dollars they're spending and then the efforts.
So it almost sounds like then the recommendation is build a strategy. Is before diving into 100%. One particular thing. And I think that's a really good point. It's a really important point because everything that you just mentioned requires a baseline strategy and a framework to make sure that you set all those pieces in place. The second that we start digging into clients' previously collected survey data or whatever customer insights they have, we start to realize and expose those missed opportunities that had you planned ahead, we could have been using this for X, Y, and Z. When we pull out that survey, we see, wow, there are these three really great questions. Let's duplicate those on an updated survey so that we can now start to benchmark. But it takes taking a step back, realizing that this is a multifaceted, multi-step approach that all need to work together. And so it is, rather than diving headfirst into a particular project, is for 2021, start building your strategy.
Well, and maybe what I think that part of it is, I think a lot of people don't want to build their strategy until they have all the information. So maybe it's a better of let's do a framework of your strategy of what we want, and then we figure out where the pieces are. So I think there's this misnomer of I have to have all the information to build the actual strategy. So in the beginning, it's a framework. And then we start filling in the pieces with the process. Yeah. Exactly.
And making sure too, I think as you're building out that strategy or the framework, as Jenny's saying, is also depending on what the objective is, making sure that you then have that you're ready and prepared to run with then, wherever the recommendations or the insights are going to tell you. So again, I was on a call with somebody the other day and I said, are you ready to be able to make the changes if this is what we're going to recommend, if this is what the data and the results are going to say? And they said, well, I think we need to fix a few of these things. I said, we can do the survey, we can do, that, and that's totally fine. And we'd be happy to help you with it. But just make sure that you're ready. And if you're not, then maybe let's pause for a little bit. Instead of spending it now, make sure that kind of some of the pieces are in place to be able to do that. And so I think that that's, another area just as for an organization to be able to really think about.
And customers pay attention and they see that. They know that if they submitted a survey 6 months ago, they never heard anything back and they didn't see anything change, they're aware of that fact. And so a lot of times for a brand, it's, we need this information, we're going to go out and get it, and then we're going to keep our head down and continue making decisions here. But if you don't think about that two-way communication channel, there's a missed opportunity, and it could be doing more harm to that relationship than good.
For sure. Yeah.
And even just some touch base is, it doesn't have to be everything. You don't have to tell them exactly what you're doing, but at least let them know we heard you. This is what we're doing. This is our process. Include them in the process of, and just let them know we're working through this right now, and just keep that line of communication open. Yes.
Thinking high level again, looking at 2021, people are either in the process or looking at budgeting for next year. Platforms like SurveyMonkey and Google Forms make it really easy for people to do their own surveys, to conduct their own research. And it's understandable that people would want to keep that in-house and feel like they have full control of it. And because it's so easy and straightforward to drag and drop and submit and collect, it's an attractive option. But as we've seen time and time again, it doesn't always yield the results that they want. In fact, more times than not, it ends up being more observational, less focused and less targeted, and not exactly yielding the information that they were hoping to get when they started out. So if you could expand, Jenny, a little bit on the pros and cons, I guess more of what's the benefit of partnering with a third-party research company like us, like McKinsey?
Right. I mean, quite honestly, these tools are amazing that are out there, right? And what has happened, we've been in business for 35 years. So the technology has, exponentially grown over the time that we've been around. I think that quite honestly, the tool by which the survey gets deployed doesn't really matter. As long as it's, that it looks like your branding that you've done. There's some basic things. We can go into a different time of what your survey should look like. The benefit of working with somebody else, and quite honestly, a professional, so it can be an internal if you've got somebody, but we shouldn't just hand over a research project to somebody inside the company that does not have some sort of expertise in developing questionnaires. What are we doing? We want to be asking questions in the right way. We also don't want to, so one, we don't want to be leading questions. We don't want to be asking questions in the wrong sense and then using these results if they're not, valid on the back end. But I think a really big thing as well is inside an organization, and this is where it kind of, it's market mapping, is we need to look outside of ourselves. And sometimes, even McKinsey, we hire consultants to do different things for us, it's great to get that outside perspective. Right now, we've got this unconscious bias. Well, this won't work, and this is what we're assuming and what's going on. When we come in, we say, what is your hypothesis? Let's test that out. Let's figure this out. We need to be able to look outside of ourselves to see a different way of looking at the world and interpreting the results, as opposed to just looking about it how we think it's going to be. Because every single business owner and everyone that's been in their company for a little while has unconscious bias of what's happening. And then having somebody help set up an outside strategy of what can we do, knowing your business. This has worked with others. This is what we've seen. This is how we can benchmark about other folks. So just getting that outside perspective, I think, is key. Yeah. Kate,
Kate, anything to add?
No, I'd agree. I think that there's value in, again, an outside perspective. I mean, I just really do. And again, that's not to say, though, as Jenny said, there's a purpose and a place for all those tools as well. So depending on what your objective is, it may make sense to keep it in-house. If you're wanting to know, do consumers like yellow cups or red cups, then you can ask that. And that's really, if that's kind of what you're at. If you're trying to get into something, deeper, then sometimes having that, outside perspective to be able to help give guidance and how to set up those questions, and how to analyze, again, the results in a way, without any sort of, like, as Jenny said, the bias in it. So then we're looking at it, we aren't looking from a lens of, well, this is the answer that I want it to be, depending, especially if it's an internal person, if they're kind of going in a direction that they're trying to push for, and then they want the data to be able to help tell that story. We're looking at it just from a completely, outside perspective, and say, this is what the data is truly showing you. And then how you want to be able to incorporate that into your process is then the part of the, discussion and the consulting that comes with that.
I would also just say, and I don't think this is necessarily inside or outside, but as planning for 2021, anybody doing any sort of customer insights or research, that there needs to be an overall strategy that's happening. So as opposed to having ad hoc research projects coming from different departments with different looks and feels and asking possibly similar questions or whatnot, similar, that you would never just do like one social campaign and say, hey, well, that didn't work, or have different departments putting out messaging. Making sure that there's a consistent message of when are we connecting with our customers, what's the voice that we're talking about, how are we marrying this information together on the back end of putting together a thoughtful research strategy. Because a lot of times I think that these research projects just feel very ad hoc and not connected to the overall picture of what's going on. So having kind of a guardian, whether that's internal or external, of what are all the different pieces.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to remember that consultants like us, third parties like us, can play different roles in the process and in the project. A lot of people think, I've got this SurveyMonkey account, or I've got a Qualtrics account. I have the capability to submit or to distribute and collect a survey. Great. That doesn't need to be what we do. However, as you had mentioned, Jenny, is the question formatting, the methodology, the wording. These are such delicate things that if you have a double-barreled question, if you add too many ands in that question, the results that you're going to get are going to be diluted, and you're going to lose out on that. So to have someone come in who knows those delicate details can be the difference between a positive result and one that leaves you wanting more.
100%.
So thank you both so much for discussing. We're deep into Q4 right now, rapidly approaching 2021. So thank you so much for your insights. A lot of this is really helpful, for me, but I know for other brands as they're continuing their planning process. Thank you for watching. This has been Gracefully Embracing Chaos, brought to you by McKinsey Corporation. If you have ideas for other topics you'd like to hear us discuss, please leave a comment below, or visit our website to contact us, mckenziecorp.com. Thank you so much again. We'll see you next time.